keep on lovely that it's up in here. So it's very cultured to be here and take water, right? I'm a sunny Togo day, so glad to be here and really just looking forward to having a fascinating conversation with Teja and Lucas. Just I don't get introduce themselves a bit and just use Z very briefly. I'm a lot of you I do know, some I don't know. B2B marketing. Many of the talkers is now about how in the last couple of years had a few organisations kind of banging a drum bit more B2B marketing, which is great. But we've been doing that for 20 years. So 20 years ago, we launched B2B Marketing magazine. I gave up my job to do that. There was no one talking about B2B there. Nowadays, it's great to see this community coalescing around wearing out the red standards and driving interest in it. And we do things like B2B Marketing Awards, B2B Marketing Tonight, and a whole host of things around that. We have a community called Propolis, where we have a host of the world's biggest B2B brands, including Deloitte, IBM, PwC, Pega, ServiceNow. We're part of that community to learn from each other, share best practice. So that's my role in this kind of entity. I do want to thank you for also flagging the point about buying group marketing and decision-making activity and all the interest that's going on in that, because in 2 weeks' time, we've got our ABM conference, account-based marketing conference. If you're interested in buying group behaviour, that's the event you've got to come to. I'm sorry for the plug, but it's I've got to do it as I'm here. So if you'd like to know about that, afterwards. That's it. That's my plug for now. Rob starts to talk about connecting business in this kind of current environment, also talking about picking up a lot of things he learned today around the brand versus experience kind of conundrum or connectivity. And Rob sells personas. There's so many things we can think of from today. So I'm going to ask our wonderful fellow contributors to introduce themselves. Tejal, tell us about yourself. What's your background? You've got a lot of experience in the B2B side of things. Tell us about yourself and also anything interesting. What stood out to you today to what you learned so far?
Right, hello everyone. So I'm Tejal. I've just recently left Cisco. I was there for 8 years in a couple of roles, mostly digital and global marketing roles. And that is actually not only B2B experience as well. I've done at Cisco. I come from a B2C background, so I've got a fascinating perspective across both. And the training has been extremely interesting.
And what anything particularly stood out for you today in terms of something you loved that you heard? You thought, yes, that confirms what I thought. Oh my goodness, I didn't know that before.
I think a couple of things. I think the power, what Mimi said, it's always the last thing that sticks in your mind the most, right? And when Mimi was talking about hidden buyers, hidden audience, I think that's an interesting one that I don't need to think enough about, and how influential they can be. I think it was common sense what she said about they're going to over-rotate on do they hate the brand because they're not part of the research process. So the default is, what have I heard of them? So for that was interesting. And then I think the other piece that I've already been familiar with the Superpowers Index. Rob and I had a chance to do double act a few months ago on that before it was launched, I think, at one of your events. And I think the thing that is good to see, and I'd love to talk more about, is their peer-to-peer bit and how incredibly important that's becoming. I think it was ranking quite high in one of their influences of the decision making. So that I knew, but to get the data behind it is useful.
Yeah, there's so many great data in that research. Credit to Dentsu, though, fantastic job exploring some of that. So that's great. Tejal, thank you for that. There's some things we pick up later on. Now, Tejal's confounded me a little bit, so I was hoping to position this as the B2B side and say, Lucas is from the dark side. From your B2C, tell us space up. I've never known it called the dark side, but I'm with it. I felt like a bit of an insulator, and I've been in marketing for 20 odd years, all in the kind of B2C side. But I think it might be a bit B2B adjacent in some ways, which I'll explain. But I've worked across a bunch of different sectors. So initially food and drinks. I worked in brands like Heineken and Pepsi. And in about the past 10 years, more in kind of digital brands across financial services and cars. So I was at British Supermarket, I was at Aviva. And my last kind of big role was at Dentsu. So online used car retailer. That was kind of a startup about 5 years ago now. And kind of was part of that whole journey of kind of growing that really, really quickly in the UK and in Europe. Fascinating to sit in the sessions this morning, and it's just all learning for me because I kind of new to this kind of space, but really interesting to kind of see where there are similarities and synergies with kind of the B2C world. Certainly lots of differences, but also lots of similarities as well. The debate around brand is kind of just as hot in the world of B2C, what's it mean? How do you invest in it? What's the right level of kind of focus it should get? That's definitely kind of a hot topic within consumer brands. That's really interesting to see. And just an interesting reflection on that whole point around combined groups and hidden buyers and things like that. At the Zoo, we were selling used cars online, average prices like 15 to 20,000 films. You get into the buy that before they've even seen it. Our research kind of showed that at half the time, it's multiple people within a household making a decision on which car to buy, and whether to buy it from this company and this company. So probably as close as it's going to get to that kind of dynamic with a consumer to B2B. So just understanding that dynamic's really interesting. Yeah, there's a notion considered purchase, right, which just joins up between B2B and B2C, the whole purchase cycle. And it's interesting, just the kind of and there's an wider ecosystem of B2C. There's some very kind of short play stuff where you're dealing with, exactly I was talking about, very, very tight, very, very, very expensive purchases, and that notion of a group buying dynamic within there. But there's also a blurring of boundaries within an ecosystem around B2C, which been into B2B. So you heard this all before, I'm sure. So I think we really want to talk about the brand, demand, experience, our triangle, I suppose, as it were. But also want to talk, and that's something we can pick up later on. But Rob introduced the session today by talking about this notion of connected business, the connectivity required for businesses to function, and the challenges also associated with today's world. I think it was brilliantly expressed in terms of some things that we're focusing on. I was personally terrified to understand, but I'll go 300% faster. I'm not quite sure I'm going to do that. Are there drugs that you can buy for those things? There probably are. But tell us a bit about your experiences. Let's just start with you on this one, about the kind of some of the things that you challenges you've faced in terms of connectivity within the companies you worked at, the challenges you've seen, and perhaps how you've responded or addressed these. So I think two very contrasting experiences from the last two places I worked at. So was Aviva, so that's obviously a very established, quite an old business. Some of it goes 100 years. But when I joined, it was a few years after the point where the entire business had been rebranded as Aviva. Before that, it was very much a collection of brands like Norashini, who were spanning a whole range of different kind of small parts of the business and different product lines, the rest of it. So it had been really effectively and completely rebranded as Aviva. But under the hood, really was kind of 3 or 4 quite separate, quite side businesses, maybe kind of 4 or 5. My role in that was kind of very much leading the brand side, particularly the direct-to-consumer side, within the digital business, but clearly everything else that happens and every other kind of interaction, whether they are customers and consumers or B2B customers, which is where most of the revenue came from, all of that would impact on the perception of Aviva as a brand. So you tend to be having conversations around the door, trying to be really focused on the customer and the D2C arena, innovating to make sure you're being really kind of honest and transparent, which is quite difficult in this. And on the other side, you've got, potential kind of reputational issues where the person talking about that's happened on another policy here that's got nothing to do with you. So, and some of us, it's a bit like 16,000 people, but incredibly complex. So challenging, but in that instance, we did have kind of blessing the CEO to really try and lead this conversation, which helped quite a lot. You paint a picture of that environment, and it's you can understand how inherently it's disconnected. It's almost a wonder there's any connectivity, let alone any disconnectivity. Yes, it's probably more the latter. So it's a lot about relationship and trying to kind of navigate around the business. And then it's also, I guess, it's a 3-dimensional puzzle, and it's a moving target because the strategy is always probably evolving as new companies being acquired, offers expiring, etc., etc. So in real time, I'm trying to hit this thing that's moving. So it was the marketing. That sounds incredibly complicated. Lucas, thank you. Teja, tell us a bit about how do you reflect on what if any common ground there, or is there anything that observations you've got around that kind of connectivity issues you saw maybe absolutely at Cisco?
It definitely resonates with me. 16,000, I think at Cisco, when I left, it was close to 90,000 employees.
Wow.
You don't get much bigger than that. And I think the connectivity is definitely a problem. Imagine the silos that are created, and you've got thousands of distant marketing organizations, acquisitions that are constantly coming in with their own marketing organization and their own sales, and they're entities on their own. And now they're kind of merging together into this big companies. So I think the disconnection is more common than the connection is, as very few companies, I think, are going to put their hand up and say, we are really, really well connected. I think you've got to be almost at the startup, early stage territory, where it's just frankly got less people, so decision making can happen much quicker.
So I guess the natural question from that is, you think about that environment. So what's marketing's role in trying to address that? Or because you're never going to solve it, are you, right? Because it's a human system, everything else, and as soon as it's solved, it's broken again in some way you didn't expect. So what's marketing's role in trying to address that? I mean, Tejal, are you kind of playing at the edges of that? Is it kind of tactical aspects of disconnection you're trying to fix, or is it about trying to feed up to the senior leadership and trying to help them understand what it might look like and what they're going to do to fix it? All of those.
Well, I was going to say it's all of those things. I think we need to remind ourselves what our job is as marketers, that we are representing the customer in the organization and, using the word shepherding that experience from the beginning to the end. In B2B, longer buying cycles, more and more people involved, thousands of touch points, and it's complex IT solutions. The marketing has to shepherd the customer, but then represent through the insights they're gaining what it is those pain points are. And, it came up earlier about empathy, having that empathy, what is the pain that your customer's feeling and how you address that. I think, in my opinion, and maybe think B2B especially, I don't think marketing is fully serving its purpose. We are definitely demand engines and it's all about growth, but we can bring so much more around the closeness of the customer, helping to develop your products as well. And I think for me, that's almost at the gold standard of you've done a great job as a marketer. If you're able to connect product teams to customer insights, to developing the next best thing about your product, and it's customer-led. And I think if you achieve that in your organization, then you've truly fulfilled your job. Apart from, I think it's table stakes to be driving growth and sales. And
that's really interesting, because that seems to be a lot of coalescence of narrative around that. I love the vision you present there of the kind of the CMO's job being the kind of linchpin or fulcrum of all of these different forces, these different sometimes competing and conflicting forces, and trying to bring sense, but ultimately bringing the customer's perspective through, which is challenging with a B2B company, because sales wants to work with the customer, right? So I love that. That's pretty aligned. How does that compare in your experiences then? Because the companies you've worked for, can you there's a kind of a sense often where B2B marketers will beat ourselves over the head, going, it's so much easier in consumer land because they've got it all sorted. They understand the power of the brand, and they have these awful conversations. Is that true?
I was saying before, I think it massively varies. So in my ears, definitely the word typically in FMCG, and even within that it can vary, but typically marketing is a pretty strategic function, and a marketer will often not just be talking about communications and advertising. You will be involved in things like pricing and product diversity. You really kind of closely fulfill the whole business in some sense. In my head, there's kind of everything else. It tends to be very different. So often you've got a much harder job to be marketing and marketing, as I call it. Like, you do have to kind of help to educate the broader business on what two things should be and what it looks like, in a way that you kind of don't necessarily need to in the same way within FMCG. So you've got that dual role of doing the job marketing to your external customers, but also constantly kind of educating and explaining in kind of simple language what product looks like. They bring to life a kind of view that customer as much as possible. That's very much consistently an important role to marketing. Internally, you are kind of assessed about your products, whatever it is, in a way that customers just aren't. So really important to bring to life a very clear objective view of what's the reality of the world outside, and what the customers see, and therefore how do you need to respond to that.
So this isn't a correlation between the ability of marketing to kind of own that customer relationship and be that voice of the customer, because it's harder when it's easier when you've got a mass number of broadly similar customers versus in B2B, where you might have some very big customer voices, and then consequently to then be that strategic voice because you're able to coalesce all information and present it holistically.
100%. But also, I think there's a kind of element of it can't be just marketing's job a lot of the time. I think what's best for me, particularly in Kazoo, was actually being customer obsessed was think a lot of people will talk about was rebrand the value, but it really, really was. And across every different function, from the CEO down, everyone's kind of very much focused around what do we need to do to the customer. I think in other businesses, well, they'll talk the talk around being customer obsessed, but absolutely don't deliver on it, or it's just seen as a marketing thing or an HR thing. It's not really kind of the kind of stick of rock that goes right through the business. So at this point, I'm going to ask Tesha questions in a second, but we'd like this to be interactive. So if you've got any questions or push your eyes, please, we'd love to get your thoughts as well, because this is a small, intimate event. I mean, it's nice to have some collaboration, so please don't be shy. I'd love to hear from you. Tesha, in the meantime, though, how do you respond to that? I mean, in terms of that challenge of owning that customer, and is it a connected endeavor when you're trying to work in organizations like Cisco with other functions to just kind of get that consistency and collegiate voice?
I totally agree with what you said about customer obsession. I think that's really important to, one of the things I think it came up in one of the sessions earlier about silos that exist and how to break those silos down. And I was thinking about it, and really the commonality in every organization is the customer. Every team's got their own thing to do and their own goals to achieve, and some of them feel like it's got nothing to do with your own team. But one thing you should always sort of agree on is your customer. You're going to drive growth, and you're going to do that through understanding the customer. So I think having that customer obsession is really important. And it made me think today, actually, I don't know if you're all familiar with the Amazon story about how decision-making happens in the meeting rooms, and there's always a spare seat. Do you guys know that story?
Yeah.
So there's always that kind of empty chair, which is a physical reminder to the people in the room that that's the customer. Whatever that decision they're looking to make, the question kind of goes back to the chair. Metaphorically, how's the customer going to react to that? Is this going to work for them? Now, that's a theory, in my experience at Cisco, because if Amazon's able to do it, and I don't know if they do still do it today, but I think that says a lot that a company can grow at the speed at which Amazon has, but they still continue to be customer obsessed. So it is possible to do.
Yeah.
I've not seen as much evidence of it in a big company like Cisco. I think it's organizationally struggled to get people on the same page. And also, to be fair, you've got so many different customers, thousands of different products. It becomes much harder and joining up the data. So I think we had Joe from Sixth Sense, so that was one of their takeaways, is your data joined up?
Yeah.
If you don't have the visibility of the data in one place and everyone's got that single source of truth, it becomes harder to read.
And the ability to interpret that in a consistent way, to extract value from that rather than a big level. I think that's, I'm glad I've come onto this, so I asked that question Lucas a second, but this a big narrative around brand versus demand. Well, is it necessary really? Is it brands more important? Is it demand or performance more important? It's the customers more important. That's the most important thing. I think we can all agree on that one. Lucas, tell us a bit about your experience of this again. To reflect on what Sajal said.
So it's interesting that whole point about Amazon, I guess, but the flip way to think about it is maybe the fact they have grown at it because they're so customer-centric. There's one way to think about it. But they're kind of similar to us within Kazoo with starting out, they're kind of, the founder kind of demanded that everyone have an automated email into their inbox every time we've got a review on Trustpilot. So that it's not just kind of an insights team or a marketing team really kind of listening to the customer. Everyone's kind of really obsessed with it. It becomes a point where it just becomes unmanageable. Yeah, it's just flooded with them. But as a kind of core principle, having the voice of the customer kind of inserted into the business in some way, I think it's quite interesting.
Those are two great now anecdotes around how you can embody that, how you can, it's almost like totemic, isn't it? It always doesn't matter if it's paid attention to, it's the fact that it's there and it's a statement of behavior that's baked into how the company operates. But why do companies go wrong with it? What are the things that makes you lose visibility under the customer? Because it's ridiculous as marketers, we could be losing visibility at customers, but it happens all the time, what goes wrong?
I think what's quite natural, whether in marketing or not, is that you come to work with one brand or one business every day and you think about it all the time, you see passionate about it. And I think the minute you start in jumping, you start getting into it, you further away from the customer. And I think the temptation is to make assumptions around how your customers thinking and feeling without actually having the objective data to do it. Right. So just the skill, then constantly putting yourself in the shoes of the customer, or recognizing that you don't have the answer because you're not a customer. That is difficult. But we had one of our kind of main mantras is you are not the customer, because the amount of meetings you're in where everyone says, well, I'm not a customer, and the answer is X. It's just like, I've been marketing for 20 years. I can tell you I don't know my customer. I never will. I'll always look at that. That's not some shit at my job. It's because I think it's because no one listens. Yeah, if they're honest, and you really need to go speak to directly to the customer. I think it's that dynamic. It's just very natural, and it really takes a bit of experience to understand that issue, and then really kind of have the discipline to kind of force yourself to kind of step outside of your little bubble and do it all the time.
I want to just build on what Leo is saying. Like, it's so true. I think even some of the things we talked about earlier today, what most experience matters, and these are things you need to do. I think in companies, we all think we know best. And also another classic I would get a lot, and I've had it through my career, but I'm not seeing the ads. I'd be sure we're investing in the right places, but why does it not come up to me? This can't be right. I'm putting it into search, and it's not, our keywords aren't coming.
Yeah.
That's because you're not the top.
Yeah.
I think you'll forget that just because you work in that company on those products day in, day out, you think you know it all.
Yeah.
But you don't. You only know about your product from the inside out. You don't know from the outside in. And the only way to do that is talk to customers. But only what I haven't learned enough about today, there's a little glimpse of it from Laura in the session earlier. You've got to test. That no one wears any of it until you're going to put it out there, you're going to test it, and you're going to see what resonates, what messaging resonates. Are you actually targeting the right audience? And take it forward on that basis. But no one knows anything for sure. And I'm going to try things out and going to test them.
Because that's the thing I kind of called out and said, because he was customer obsessed, the other was data driven. So if you ever had disagreements, there's opinions internally about, which way to go, bring that data from the assembly. That takes opinion off the table.
Exactly.
If you can objectively show, actually, this is Orient, this is the channel they use, this is how they respond to stuff, and no, it isn't the same as you've got the data to show the best members.
I love the anecdote about the I'm not seeing the adverts, because the other anecdote I often hear in B2B marketing is the CEO like wanting the adverts to see where they are.
That's what advertising.
Exactly.
Has to be done.
Exactly. Because I just talked to someone from JCB Colas, which she's saying, no, we're very, very robust around our metrics, and we can. Yeah, but the CEO likes to do the airport, they go over the fly as well. So, tell us a bit about the challenges then. I mean, because one of the things that we, again, our PC Propolis, one of the which we're really, really big on in terms of dealing with CMOs is to try and help them generate kudos and momentum and getting impact at a broad level. We've talked about all these things, all these issues of connectivity with brand versus demand. All the ways it's not more level than at the executive team level, about the other level where marketing is with the CEO and this, actress. How do you take this narrative to that group, Teja? What do you do to try and help those individuals understand and convince them of the more logic about what needs to get done? Is it just simply just talk about the customer? Is that the thing which cuts through most, or are there other levers that you have to pull to get traction?
So, honestly, I wasn't at CMO level at Cisco, but I can tell that the CMO that's been based there for the last couple of years has done a good job in creating the narrative around your word of marketing. And
right.
She did that in a couple of ways. I think, first of all, being clear that the role of marketing is a go-to-market organization.
Yeah.
It has a responsibility of providing air cover.
Yeah.
It has an opportunity and a responsibility to drive net new sales.
Yeah.
And that's possible to do. We talked a lot about inbound. So much of the sales can come through inbound, and marketing can control that, control that experience. And having the right metrics in place. So at Cisco for a number of years, and in fact, it was very similar to us at Microsoft, there was a whole engagement metric that was used and communicated, and that put value on driving engagement with customers. And it has to be high value engagement that is connected to intent and seriousness about your product. So it isn't just about the bottom line. Should you grow revenue or contributed to pipeline? Yes. But I think showing that there are these other metrics further up the chain that are important has been part of the story. And one last point as well is around the brand piece. Obviously, a company like Cisco is going to feature heavily in, like Interbrands, a big one that has been used. And it's I think, the most valuable pure B2B brand in the world. And I know that the CMO uses that a lot as a way of that in itself has a lot of equity and there's a financial value to the brand recognition. So I think that there's those components. There's the private component, there's the engagement where you are engaging in a way that is showing intent and you're measuring it. And then there's the pipeline.
Yeah.
And I think she's done quite a good job of right across the breadth of it. What I think the opportunity still is we're like the insights again. And there's so much at your fingertips, social listening, what kind of trends are occurring on your website, what are they looking for, what are communities saying. Those things aren't being done well. I think that should be the next level of how you tell the stories forward.
So it sounds to me like it's data originated storytelling, isn't it? It's being able to tell a good narrative but back it up with something rather savvy though. So that's the key to me was, how about you, Lucas? How do you play it?
Yeah, similar, but I think on a smaller scale, as a kind of marketing director or CMO, I've kind of obviously with a lot of marketing services agencies. I've also more recently been advising a lot of smaller agencies, and their role is to kind of get hold of CMO. How do I get hold of the big decision maker at the top? Actually, if I think about how I've often made decisions, if I've got specific needs or as other people do it, it's usually the first port of call is ask my team. Who's good out there? Who do you think I should speak to? And yes, you'll have your own perspectives, but it's not just as simple as if I just keep hammering away trying to get hold of that one decision maker at the top. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Clearly, you need to have a level of influence with those people. But similarly, we heard before, it's a broader group of people who are influencing that decision. And actually, often at quite a junior level, are the ones that are much more funders. They're going to be using those services themselves. They'll be aware of who's good at it and who's good at in the market. And actually, a lot of the time, they don't necessarily get the love and attention that the CMOs get from who suppliers.
So again, it often flows back to marketing. Marketers are best at their job when they're able to demonstrate they're good at it internally before they go out and do it externally. So, eating your own dog food, drinking your own champagne. So what of those vegetables you prefer? Champagne, so I won't be offended when I was asking questions. I assume it's because you've been fascinated by the questions I've been asking. So that's really good. So thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. Very kind. Just one last thing. We hadn't begun about superpowers, right? That we need to develop as marketers. Tell us about, if not superpowers, then attributes, skills, things that you would recommend marketers to have to bridge that, to bring to get rid of connectivity, to bring organizations together. And I appreciate you can't solve everything, but Lucas, any particular attributes or skills you say go and be better at this if it can be?
Yeah, I think it was one of the superpowers there. It's storytelling, number one for sure. Doesn't matter what sort of marketing you do, you're dealing with an enormously complex array of data points and insights. The ability to kind of turn that into one simple, clear story. That's how you lead big, large, complex organization, both internally, and then translate it into an external message. You've got to have a clear, simple story. And there's usually one there, but I think that's a really useful skill set to get the storytelling pitch really important.
It sounds very good. Kind of Teja, what about you?
I'll build on that. I think storytelling internally, but tailoring the story to the audience. I think finance wants to hear something quite different. You've got to talk their language versus the product team or versus the sales team or versus the CEO. So I think that is a critical skill set is adapt to storytelling.
Your audience don't tell us finance stories of finance, not marketing stories about it, because they won't lie. They're simple people. Well, I think that's pretty much all we have time for, and we've come in at a time, which is rare for me, so I'm very pleased. So thanks so much. Oh, I beg your pardon, sorry, go for it.
It's a broader one for today, actually, because we talked about the importance of the brand experience, our brand. We said at the start that all companies really are B2B. There's a huge gap in this conversation, and that is about the brand's channel and partner network. they often have far more salespeople than the brand themselves. So they are more distant. They represent the brand blindly for the brand sometimes. So it's quite interesting that hasn't come up today. And
I mean, it's a hugely important thing. And, I think I had a ding dong this year with Cannes Lions, because the winners of the Cannes Lions were Coca-Cola and Heineken, which, when you're trying to promote the complexity of B2B marketing and selling, is, I'm not saying weren't great campaigns. They were good campaigns, but they didn't deal with that complexity. I completely acknowledge there's a wider ecosystem in marketing. I know that, Lucas, for example, you've worked with that really strongly. I suspect so do you have as well. It's a whole day, let alone a different session. But any observations about that ecosystem?
I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think when you think about experience and the brand experience, it's for all of the key stakeholders, from partners, employees, you've got that in a couple of times, investors, and your customers. And they're all really important. And there has to be a consistency of the messaging across all of them. So, yeah, I agree. I think we haven't spoken enough about it. We should, and it's an untapped opportunity still.
Well, an observation I've got, having B2B marketing was the category channel marketing, and I sat in on a session because I was doing a podcast about it. And one of the things that we've heard consistently, that in times of economic strife, channel marketing should get up, grows, and it gets more emphasis, more strength, and more focus. And yet, actually, the number of actually fell, and the panel were less whelmed than overwhelmed than we might have liked them to be around the quality and the interest in it. So I think that it's a challenging area. I think there's a whole conversation around why that is the case. But Lucas, do you have any observations? You worked this area.
Yeah, I'm sure I think kind of a parallel, kind of equivalent in my world would be probably Heineken, where you are, or any of those kind of brands, you'll sell your brand into a retailer, and you don't actually have a direct relationship with the end customer. And particularly something like the pub trade, you're depending on their teams to serve your beautiful brand in an upper class every single time, and it's really, really hard. And so again, you have to influence a whole level of people that have to really kind of champion your brand, and also lots of other competitive brands, by the way. So you've got a kind of dual role to kind of excite your own consumers, but also your retail customers, to really kind of champion brand. It's really important and really difficult.
Definitely important. Thank you for raising the topic app, mashing app, but so thank you so much to wonderful analysts. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for advising as well, but really enjoyed it.